Faisal Suleiman. With me he's the chairperson of Semnet. Faisal, Assalamu alaikum. Juma Mubarak.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Juma Mubarak to you and the listeners. And thank you so much for the opportunity, Asha.
And a different platform this time, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Faisal, let's talk about, so I understand a petition has been put forward. So why? To what end?
All right. So, Ashraf, it's not so much as a petition as a letter we wrote, and then we asked people to endorse it, which, alhamdulillah, all of the large Muslim organizations have endorsed. And we sent it off to the French embassy yesterday. And basically, it was to say to the French government, I'm not sure if you've seen the contents, and let me mention if anybody wants to see it, they're welcome to contact the Senate office and we'll email it to them or, send it to them.
I have, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So basically, we're saying to the French government, as you mentioned in the intro, you want to introduce this law. Now, what we did, Ashraf, you will notice, we didn't turn this letter into a treatise about hijab. I mean, that's our faith, that's our belief, and that's the point. We said to the French government, these are your people. These are French Muslims, which you should over 3.5 million, which you cannot wish away. They are legacy of both your colonial past. As people know, France occupied much of Africa and some parts of the Middle East, and many of the people in France now were fodder of cheap labor for the French, Algerians, Moroccans, just like there are so many Turks in Germany. They wanted cheap labor, etc., and they sent these people across to France to work in the jobs none of the French wanted to, or the European French wanted to do. But anyway, so these are your people. You pride yourself, or your constitution is big on equality and liberty and freedom and all of this. So why can't the French people have it? And then we went on to basically say, and South Africa is an example, New Zealand an example, other countries, where people are respected, where they have their rights and they have dignity. They are your best bet against extremism. They are communities that flourished. I mean, we didn't go into huge examples, but we mentioned the French football team, for example, which, people will know one of the things that made the U.S. so great was some of the greatest innovators and entrepreneurs in the U.S. Were immigrants.
Okay, but let me understand this, right? So what is it about the French ban, or proposed ban in this case, do you find so offensive?
Well, firstly, that they would even contemplate discriminating against Muslims specifically. These laws, starting, for the past few years now, have been targeted at Muslims. They've got this thing that they have the separatism, but they're basically saying that anything that the Muslims want to do that is on their religious right is that they want, they're planning to succeed, or they want to be separate from the French. They haven't applied their rules all of these years to Christians, to Jewish people, etc. It's been specifically targeted at Muslims.
But have they not also banned? Have they also not banned other religious symbols from other groups? I understand they have, so not today, but before. Yeah,
but it hasn't been enforced. The enforcement and the picking of these things. You've had Christians with crosses attend school for hundreds of years. There hasn't been the enforcement of it. And now, yes, they've said any religious symbol, but the enforcement has specifically been against Muslims, and that's why the letter is.
So it's okay. Let me understand this, because I think our listeners need to know. You're saying that in fact they're pushing the secular culture, and as part of that, banning all outward displays of religious symbols. But you're saying that it's only the Muslim ones who abuse that rule, and therefore flouting the rule, in fact, will be what? Criminalized, and the others not?
Well, I wouldn't say abusing the rule. This has been a rule that has been pushed by the far right parties, and yes, the Burkini, etc., have been passed in France under the guise of under the fear of Islam, the warmongering, campaign, the war on terror. But so firstly, I wouldn't suggest it's abuse of the religion. I have said that this is selective discrimination, and therefore people have continued to practice something that they believe in, and not as resistance, but as something that is intricate to their faith.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
the fact that
Now,
you have selective, yeah, no,
yeah.
no, but the fact that you've had selective application is what makes this so painful and hypocritical.
All right. So having said that, this letter, as you talk about, as opposed to a petition, I mean, to what end? What do you want? What would be the likely or the first prize outcome of this letter?
Well, I think the French government needs to know that Muslims all over the world, well, in our case, from South Africa, are first of all appalled by the selective discrimination, and they need to be shown the hypocrisy of what they're doing. And for Muslims, it is a question of raising awareness. The fact that we're having this discussion, and I've had it on other Muslim radio stations, it shows that the Muslim community ourselves need to be made aware. I mean, from Semnet, we've been doing this on our social media platforms as well, raising awareness,
Yeah.
and we hope that Muslims listening now will be encouraged to take to social media, to the French embassy on Twitter, etc., and express support for the Muslims and express opposition.
So I'm going to suggest that it's less of a Muslim issue, although it affects Muslims clearly in this case, but it's more of a human rights issue. So with that in mind, to what degree has the same type of letter or lobbying gone to the European Union, for example, and the United Nations? Because you have a country that would be a signatory to all the things about the United Nations expects, but it's if what you're saying is correct, then in fact they're flouting human rights issues in that countries in the same way that South Africa did during apartheid. So to what degree then are you petitioning or lobbying, globally?
Next steps. So first step was to get our Muslim organizations, which we have many of them, to show unity and support for this letter. In fact, I think had it not been Ramadan and COVID, we probably would have looked at organizing a march outside the French embassy, but clearly that is not practical or feasible. Next step is, as you mentioned, what would be the next steps to try and raise awareness? We also now sending our letter, for example, to other Muslim organizations like CARE, in Australia and New Zealand. Hopefully, we'll get other Muslims to similarly take up the cause. And it's not just one. In the past we've written this. The difference between this one that we thought let's get other Muslim organizations to endorse it. But of course we've written at Semnet on the other. Someone say, what about the Uyghurs and the Muslims in Burma and Sri Lanka and etc. And we have in the past written to others. But it's one thing coming just from Semnet. It's another, inshallah, coming from endorsed by a large Muslim organization. So yes, next steps are those. And the awareness that we raise now, and our request to people, especially on social media, on Twitter, to take to not abusively, properly, to take to social media and express.
Yeah, I would think lastly that the other next step would obviously be, besides South Africa as a country, I think the African Union, keeping in mind that the overwhelming majority of people of the Muslim faith residing in France has got historical links to the African continent, isn't it?
Yes, they certainly have all of those countries colonized by France. And actually, the other reason for this, and to go to European Union, of course, is the fact that this will clearly be followed by others, in Europe. If France does this as they have with other laws, you will see a large number already. I mean, ultra-right nationalism is growing in Europe. Islamophobia is growing. Other countries will follow. So it's all the more reason that people, that we try and raise awareness and make it an issue against France and hope that it doesn't extend to other countries.
Let's leave it at that. I mean, that's the first step. So Semnet, SAMNET, you can follow them on social media. I certainly follow you guys on Twitter, but give me a website address perhaps so they can find out more.
It's the same thing, www.samnet.co.za.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you for your time, Dr. Faisal Suleiman, the chairperson of Semnet. So there you are. I think a significant move in terms of raising the awareness, putting forward the formal complaint to the French government in terms of, we don't like what you're doing. And how far would that go? I just think United Nations, European Union, African Union, South Africa, when it comes to human rights abuses all around the world, we need to be there first step. That's exactly what happened with South Africa, remember, when apartheid, something to consider. There's some developments regarding vaccines in this country. I'll pick that up, but I also want to get your thoughts around this giving and taking and what do you understand by that, and particularly being Ramadan and a Friday, when do you expect to charge for everything that you do, every service, but also when you expect to not charge